Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 4. Today we are going to present you about the alternative in Islamic global in international relation, the three-party division to universal humanism. So for our team, we are consist of 4 students. They are Asti Trimutia, Heba Sukmaraga, Zulfa Sasti Alisa, and Uli Maida. So for the outline today, I'm going to present you about the main discussion will be conveyed by my friend, and we are going to end it with the conclusion. So for the introduction, the emergence of Islam in development illustrate a long history. So the rejection of this new religion in Arab is a response from the people who consider Islam as a threat to political life. To present of the Prophet Muhammad SAW with its monotheistic teaching, caused Muslims were forced to leave Mecca to Medina in 662 AD to find a safe place. This incident led them to establish a concept of state, and hence the concept of Muslim or Ummah nation began to develop. So after the death of Prophet Muhammad, the Caliph began to do futuhat or campaign to spread the new religion. Based on the historical precedents, the source of Quran and Sunnah with the paradigm of international relation at that time. So therefore, Islam since the 2nd century or the 8th AD, classical Muslim jurists divided there into Dar Islam, Dar al-Harb, Dar al-Sur. So this three-party debate, the theory has been outlined by Sheikh Muhammad Abu Zahra in 1898 until 1974 from this perspective of international relation. So the next discussion will be delivered by Zulfa.
The next, I will explain about the classical paradigm of Islamic IR, the three-party division. Next, please. And this is about the interpretation of Dar al-Islam by classical Muslim jurists in 3 different ways. So in the 8th century, Muslim jurists produced a three-party division of the word which is still interpreted and debated. However, modern Muslim scholars almost unanimously agree on this, that the three-party division of the word has no basis in the source of Islamic holy book, the Quran or the Sunnah. Due to the misconception about this classic division in the writing of some scholars and detractors of Western Islam, unfortunately the message of Islamic religion is portrayed as a hostile to the rest of the world. In other words, this division is a theoretical categorization of the different patterns of relation between the Islamic State and the rest of the world in that time. So Dar al-Islam or House of Islam, also called among other names Dar al-Salam or House of Peace, or Dar al-Adl or House of Justice, interpreted by the jurist classical Muslim in 3 different ways. The first is according to the majority of scholars, Dar al-Islam is an area where Islam and Islamic law are practiced. There is much disagreement about the practice and application of Islam and its legal system. And the disagreement range from the tolerant scholars who brand a region as a Dar al-Islam if a single Islamic law is applied, or if some Islamic ritual such as prayer is safe to perform, to extreme clerics who want to label even a Muslim state as a Dar al-Harb or House of the War, or Dar al-Kufr or the House of Kafir, if the state does not apply Islamic law or laws that are not in accordance with Islamic law apply. And the second is another minority group of scholars argues that a state is identified as a Dar al-Islam if it's ruled by Muslim on the ground that if authority rests of the hand of Muslim, they can live in peace and enjoy the freedom to practice their religion. However, there is a misconception about the Muslim and non-Muslim that Islam calls on Muslim to go to the war with the rest of the world. And the third is, as suggested by the Abu Hanifah, Dark al-Islam is a history which Muslim and Zimmi or non-Muslim citizen of the State of Islam enjoy personal security and freedom to practice their religion. Hanifa emphasis on the elements of salvation and the inclusion of non-Muslim citizens in its criteria reveals because it shows the first that this division is not the only one that is religious in nature. Dark al-Islam does not exclude alacrity, referring to the area of believers in Islam and wherever Muslim feel safe is Dark al-Islam. And the second is understandably, any area where the life of an Islamic citizen is in danger is a place of hostility and as such could become the Dark al-Harb. It follows that according to the criteria of Abu Hanifa, the whole of the world is now Dark al-Islam, except for those places where Muslims are targeted. Hence, the determination of what is Dark al-Harb or House of the War is also called as Dark al-Kufr or House of Unbelief or Dark al-Jawr or House of Injustice varies according to the three positions above. And the next slide will be delivered by my friend.
Thank you, Zulfa. So this part will discuss about modern paradigm, which mean universal humanism. So this modern paradigm emerged because at the time there were changes in the 20th century in the international community, especially the formation of the United Nations. And also beside that there were criticism from Western scholars that Islam was a violent religion that aims to transform non-Muslim through jihad, thus making Muslim intellectuals carry out re-examination from the previous paradigm to this modern paradigm. So in this paradigm, the scholars Muslim focus on how does Islam view relation with other nation state, and also how does Islam handle to the prohibition on the use of offensive force. So from two question above, that appear a new common question to what is it to answer that question. The question is whether peace or war are the original and permanent state of relation with non-Muslim state. So from this paradigm, the Muslim scholars has three views to answer that question. The first is the majority of modern Muslim scholars support the opinion that peace is the original and permanent state of relation with the rest of the world, and following the establishment of the UN and the World Agreement on the prohibition of the use of force, except as an intrinsic right of self-defense. Therefore, the classical Islamic theory of international relation is now obsolete, and most of those rules that were developed accordingly are now null and void. And the second answer is the Muslim scholars borrow from the paradigm of international relation addressed by the classical Muslim, which mean Muslim radicals and terrorists argue that war is the original and permanent state of relation with the rest of the world, and therefore non-Muslim are to be fought until they accept Islam or fall under its rule, which is putting them on the same footing as the kuffar in field Arab polytheists, who originally persecute the Muslim and prevent the spread of Islam. So some of the rules on the use of force developed by classical Muslim jurists are selectively used to sanction acts of terrorism against innocent non-Muslim civilians. And for the last view from the Islamic scholars, they believe that neither peace or war is a permanent and genuine state of relation with non-Muslims, but dakwah or spreading Islam must always be the object of Islamic relation with other non-Muslims world. So, uh, therefore, what determines whether there is a state of peace or war with non-Muslim is their attitude towards preaching for Islam. So, from these three views, the majority of Muslim scholars believe in the first view, that peace is the original state of relation with non-Muslim. And beside that, in this modern paradigm also justifies that war is carried out if there are three cases, such as aggression against Islam terrority, the second religious persecution of Muslim, and the last case is preventing the propagation of Islam. So that's all for this uh, modern paradigm or universal humanism. And the next part will be explained by my friend.
Okay, thank you for the time. So here I'm going to explain about Abu Zahra and his 10 principle of universal humanism. Sheikh Muhammad Abu Zahra is one of the Muslim scholars who had major influence on the latest literature on Islamic international relations, and his original work succeeded in reshaping and modernizing certain areas of contemporary Islamic thought, including the theory of Islamic international relations. In one of his books, Al-Mujtama al-Insani fi Zil al-Islam, or we call Human Society in the Shade of Islam, Abu Zahra emphasized that the cruelty suffered by the humanity is due to the absence of the religions. Meanwhile, the first paradigm in Islamic international relations is the principle of justice for all mankind. Next. Abu Zahra uses Islamic theology and his Tawhid doctrine as a sign of unity. Through the last revelations, the Quran, Islamic functions to unite the mankind. This essence of unity is strengthened in the Quran and showing the creation of God's humans from various backgrounds with the aim that people know each other, relate each other, cooperate each other, and respect each other. Then, the Quran calls for the migrations in search of a better sustenance and opportunities, as well as to strengthen the sense of brotherhood and cooperation among human beings. Abu Zahra was the first to formulate a universal humanistic paradigm of international relations based on Islam. Abu Zahra found that the permanent relations with non-Muslims are peace, not war. And this argument is based on his reading of Islamic holy book search, Al-Quran and As-Sunnah, and not based on the historical practice of previous Islamic countries. Next. Next, please. Okay, so these are the following 10 core principles: the universal humanistic Islamic by the Abu Zahra of international relations, which are based on Islamic law. The first one is human dignity. The Quran reinforced that the idea of human dignity as God's representative on earth, and all human beings have the same dignity, regardless of various background. In fact, that according to Malik ibn Anas, the enemy's dignity in war must be respected, whether it is life or death. And the second one is all human from one nation. The text of Quran said that despite having various differences, in a sense, humans came from one parent who formed one nation. And this difference in background is not a justification for hostility. Therefore, Islam condemns the claim of superiority to a people. And then the third is human cooperation. Al-Quran practiced by the Prophet Muhammad SAW, and Allah command mankind to cooperate in doing good and preventing injustice and aggressions. And the fourth is forbearance. The Quran and Prophets practice with non-Muslim are evidence of patience. The existence of this forbearance is very productive, whether in a state of war or after the victory. And the fifth is freedom. The text of Quran said that prohibit coercions of religions and therefore protects the right of non-Muslims to practice their religion freely in Islamic countries. Abu Zahra points out that the right to self-determination is protected in Islam for both Muslim and non-Muslim. The sixth is virtue. One of the basic principles of Islam in human relations is a commitment to virtue, especially during the war. Abu Zahra added that as detected by Quran Surah Al-Baqarah, although defensive warfare is allowed in Islam, Muslims are not permitted to violate Islamic regulations on how to fight. And the seventh is justice. Al-Quran said human relations must be based on the principle of justice, whether in peace or war. Justice during a state of war must be upheld and subject to Islamic rules and to the use of force. And the eighth is reciprocity. Prophet Muhammad advised to treat others as you would like to be treated. Thus, injustice can be stopped by applying the principle of patience, virtue, and reciprocity. And the ninth is pacta sunt servanda. One of the ways to maintain peace is by respecting the agreement. The Quran said that Islam upholds the obligations to honor the covenants or agreement. And the tenth is friendship and preventing the tyranny. The bonds of brotherhood among all human beings require the formation of friendly relations with others, even during conditions of war. In Islam, acts of hostility are only allowed against enemies who are at war. However, providing humanitarian assistance and friendly relations is permissible in Islam, even with enemy and states. These 10 principles were put forward by Abu Zahra as the rules that govern the model of Islamic international relations, both in times of peace and war. This is a positive theoretical contribution to this study because the universal humanistic approach is deeply rooted in Islamic scriptures. This 10 principle can also use as an benchmark in assessing the behavior of Muslim state and non-Muslim state actors, especially if these Muslim countries adopt Islam as the state religions in their constitutions or if these non-state actors describe themselves as Muslim. So the next explanation will be explained by my friend.
Okay, for the conclusion, the history of Islam, especially in the global world, was well adopted by Shafi'i, which support permanent conflict with the rest of non-Muslim world, or in the perspective of modern universal humanism by Abu Zahra in 1898 until 1974, who writes about human as a family associated with the brotherhood ties and justice, which in his view makes civilization's conflict impossible in Islam. In the end, Muslim countries also adopted a secular approach to international relations. The current role of Islam in international relations is played mainly by non-state actors. In conclusion, non-state actors will continue to justify their terrorist acts in Islam's terms, and therefore, the remedy for the abuse of their faith to correct Dar al-Islam lies with them. Therefore, Abu Zahra in universal humanism paradigm is made a major contribution to studying the theory of international relations in general and Muslim, especially if they use Islam in the arena of international relations. So that's all for our presentation today. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.